Welcome to the Refurbishment Mastery podcast with me, Martin Rapley. If you're a property investor who is worried about paying too much for your next property, concerned that you don't know how to manage a refurb, or scared that you will be ripped off by a builder, then this is for you. In this podcast, I share over 30 years of experience of managing refurbishments and conversions to help you make more profit, save your time, and ultimately enjoy the process. On with the podcast. In this week's episode, I'm going to answer a question that I commonly get asked by property investors, which is how often should I visit my project and what should I actually be looking for when I go and visit the project? So from a personal perspective, I aim to visit my projects once a week. Now, in the early part of a project, particularly if it's a builder I haven't worked with before, I possibly will visit more than once a week, but seldom more than twice a week. And sometimes I might need to visit more than once a week in the middle of a project. Let's say something unexpected has come to light and the builder's called me up and said, yeah, we're digging some foundations and we found something in the ground. We found, in one case, I found a well, or the builder found a well in the garden, and we had to make a decision quickly. So that's a reason to make a second visit in 1 week if you've already been there when that comes to light. And I may well visit more than once towards the end of the project, particularly if the contractor needs some encouragement to get the project finished, and kind of almost needs dragging over the finishing line, as it were. But by and large, most of the time, and most projects that I get involved with, I'll only visit once a week. And occasionally, when things are just running on normal in the middle of the project, it might not even be as frequent as once a week. Although it probably wouldn't ever get to a point where it was more than once a fortnight, and probably a little bit more frequent than that. So the kinds of things I'm looking at when I visit a project, most important thing to me really is, how is the progress getting on? How is the builder getting on with the works? Are they doing roughly what they anticipated to be doing in the week that I'm there? So if I've got a Gantt chart program from a builder before the work start, I'll have a quick look as to what I'm expecting to see when I go to the site. And if the builder's roughly doing what he believed he was going to be doing, I haven't got any problems with progress. If they've got a little bit ahead, that's obviously good news. If they've got a little bit behind, then I'll ask some questions just to flag up that they look like there's a little bit of delay. Sometimes builders will say, yes, I couldn't get the plasterer to start on Monday. He's not starting till the end of the week. But as a result, I've brought the plumber in a little bit earlier and he's done this work here. So you might find that there's some things that have slipped a little bit, but there could well be other elements that have got ahead a little bit. But having that knowledge on progress, not only does it give you a question to ask the builder and reassurance that perhaps the builder's on top of it, or maybe gives you the opportunity to help the builder get back on top of it. Perhaps the builder says, oh yeah, my plasterer's let me down, I haven't got a plasterer at all, it's all gone wrong. And it might be that you can help find a plasterer. It might be that a plasterer through other contact. And importantly, if the works are in delay, you can review any subsequent tasks that you've got to do accordingly. So if the project is getting into delay, then you may well want to put off the delivery of flooring, the delivery of furniture, the marketing of the property, if it's got to that kind of extent. So it allows you to manage the whole thing. The other thing that I'd be looking at when I go to visit these properties, it would be the quality of the work that's being undertaken. Now, assessing quality is definitely hard in the early days. Until things are finished, it's often hard to see what the real quality is. However, you can definitely tell things in the early days. Particularly once we get to kind of plastering level, if the plastering is rippled, then that is clearly not going to be acceptable, and you need to be flagging that up as soon as you see some defect. Don't obviously flag it up if the works are incomplete. So if there's elements of things that are ongoing, then it's hard to flag that up. But if something is clearly finished, if there is a wall or a room that is fully plastered and it really isn't good quality, then you need to flag it up at that point. And I've done a previous podcast all about snagging. So yeah, go back to that one and have a look at that one or have a listen to that one. That was podcast number 6. So yeah, go back to that and listen to that, and that'll give you some more advice with respect to how you deal with snagging and defects. Um, Now, you don't need to worry too much about quality of any of the works that come under the building regulations. So things like, are the foundations the right depth? Someone else deals with that for you. Is it the right concrete in the foundation? Someone else deals with that. Are the walls vertical? Building control deal with that as well. So you're really looking for the quality of the finishes, which, as I say, is why you won't see things in the early days of a lot of projects. But what the worst thing you can do is actually leave everything to the last week and then say, "Oh, by the way, the plastering you did 6 weeks ago is shocking." Builders, yeah, definitely won't entertain that. They won't. They don't like being told things are wrong in the first place, but you definitely don't want to be telling them 6 weeks after the event. I'd also be talking to my builder about their general, yeah, assessment of where things are going on site. How are things going generally? Is the weather affecting you? Is the is anything else just causing you trouble? And just ask again. This comes down to asking good questions. Ask good questions, and builders will let go of information. There may be some things there that you can just probe a little bit further. There may be some things that you can help the builder solve. You might find that the builder hasn't ordered the kitchen because actually they haven't got enough credit on their account of the kitchen company. And it may be that you can jump in there and say, well, you order it and I'll pay for it immediately. And we can solve that problem. So if you're listening for what the builder says, you may find that there are solutions that you can actually help with. You certainly want to be sure that you're not holding the builder up in any way. So you want to make sure that the builder isn't waiting for the kitchen layout from you, the bathroom fittings that you were going to order, or something like that. So always double check that they're not waiting on anything from you. And by and large, as best you can, you want to be given that information nice and early. But if you're buying materials, always double check the lead in time and the best day to get things delivered. A good question that I always ask builders is, when I come and visit this time next week, what can I expect to see finished? And builders will say, "Oh well, I've got the electrician lined up. He's coming back in, on Monday. So by next Wednesday, when you come down here, you'll find, a lot of the cables in, or I've got the plaster starting, or the painter starting, or whatever." And so that will give you a little bit of reassurance that things are planned in. Now, realistically, some things aren't planned in, and you just asking that question has prompted the builder that he's forgotten to book in the painter, and he'll go away and do that. So you're asking questions really in a way so that the builder, if he has forgotten anything, can just pick it up. You're not looking to catch him out. You're not trying to trip him up or anything, but just you are managing him. You're giving him every opportunity to succeed by asking good questions. One thing you always want to double check, although you may already have had some conversations with the builder, are any variations or changes. So the builder may already have rung you up and said, I've taken out the kitchen units and found the floors completely rotted, and I need to replace some flooring. So you may already be aware of something like that. Or it may be that something gets discussed for the first time when you visit the property. So same kind of thing. I've taken out the kitchen units yesterday and we found all the floors rotted. So you want to talk about those changes and variations. You want to be clear exactly what is the cause of the problem, because you need to know that the problem can be resolved. Well, the cause of the problem here may well be a leaky sink, and that's going to be taken away. So that's fine. But if it's something like rising damp, then you need to understand that cause so that the cause can be resolved. And then, of course, you've got the rectification of the effect. So talk through these changes. Ask the builders what the options are with respect to solving the problems. Builders believe that all property investors and developers actually need the cheapest solution. That's definitely not the case. In fact, property investors, particularly, don't want cheap solutions because we're holding our properties for the longer term. And as a result of holding them for the longer term, we don't want cheap solutions that are going to break again in 2 years' time. So always ask about the options of solving things, and just again ask good questions. Just delve a little bit deeper to understand the ramifications and potential solutions, because as I say, builders do always or tend to think that property investors want the cheap solution. Sometimes the cheap solution forgets the fact that we've got to order something that's on a, on a 5-day delivery or something, whereas the next solution up that was a little bit more expensive, we can get hold of the product, overnight. Or they won't think that you can pay a premium to get something express delivered, which, if there's a solution to something, and it's going to cost you 20 quid extra to get it express delivered, you may well want to take that option. So again, it's all about asking good questions to understand the impact. You want to be talking about the impact on the cost of the project. So, is there a cost associated with this work? Not all variations have got a cost associated with them. Some of them are just clarifying. One of the variations might be, look, we can't put the shower where you wanted it on your drawing because there's a pipe in the way. What we're going to have to do is move it over 2 foot sideways and maybe switch it over with a toilet or something like that. And we can solve that problem. Now, that doesn't necessarily cost any money, but it needs some clarity. Other times, like we've got to replace some rotted floorboards, that costs money. So make sure you're clear whether there's a cost attached to the variation. And then also you want to make sure that you understand whether there's a time implication from the variation. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier on about managing and understanding the progress. If the builder is now 2 days behind because some extra work came up and it just had a knock-on effect on the whole project and knocked on the whole project by 2 days, then you need to be aware of that, and you need to be open to the fact that potentially now the builder is going to finish 2 days later than their original anticipated completion date. So variations are really important to talk about as the project goes through. The worst thing that builders can do is contact you at the end of the project. They're trying to put together a final account for final payments, and they come up with all sorts of variations, many of which, or if not all of which, have not been talked about as the project goes on. Neither party can really remember the background to them. Some of them happened 8, 10, 12 weeks ago, and we've all moved on since then. What you really want to be doing is making sure that you're keeping on top of all of these things, making notes accordingly. Now, you may not share everything with the builder at this stage because we don't necessarily want to encourage builders to find variations. So I tend to ask questions. I make a note of potential variations. I adjust my budget to take account of those potential variations, but I'll often leave it to the builders to come back to me and say that there is an extra cost, because, as I say, they can absorb quite a lot within what they're actually doing. And the smaller builders are definitely, they expect there to be some variations that they expect to absorb within their works. The bigger builders with management teams and quantity surveyors, like the position I held for a good number of years, we were trained to find variations and make money from them. And that's what I did for many, many years. So I'm now on the other side, explaining how to manage it from the other side. Keep an eye on what's going on, but don't offer builders variations. They won't all pick up everything, and particularly the smaller ones, they won't. They'll miss a huge amount in most cases. Make sure that when you go to projects that you take some progress photos. You can never really take enough progress photos, particularly to help you resolve queries later on relating to variations, the extent of works. If the project's really badly delayed, you've got some records as to indication that it's been delayed for a long time. Maybe you want to levy liquidated damages. as a result of that delay. Um, Take photos that are going to help you make decisions when you get home again. You might just want to have a look at where sockets are and how does that impact the layout of the room, or is this room coming together like I thought it was, or is there something not quite right? Have I got the door hung the wrong way, or something like that? So there's no harm in taking photos. They're also obviously also good for marketing and to show investors and people like that. So you can't beat having some good photos of progress. Do be aware that a lot of tradesmen don't like being in photos. So don't just snap away too willy nilly. Their biggest concern, and I would flag this up as a concern that I would always have, is that they are not fully compliant with the health and safety legislation. And I talked about that also in a previous podcast. That was podcast number 14. So go back and listen to that one if you haven't done so already, and that will talk to you through the management of health and safety. So the tradesman won't always want to be in photos, so be a little bit careful about the photos you take. Likewise, take some videos if that's going to help you. And I know a lot of people post their videos on social media, but probably wait until they've all gone for a tea break or something like that. In most cases, you definitely want to be taking photos of variations, problems, issues, anything you're not clear about. So you've got a record of those as and when, and if they come back later on. And then I think the final thing that we're really doing when we visit site, and we're not necessarily doing this every single time we go to site, but in line with the agreement we've got with respect to making payments, we want to be agreeing with our builder a payment amount. How much are we actually going to pay the builder for this period? How are we going to calculate that? Is there some mechanism? Are we going to do a valuation based on a percentage of all of the items, or have we agreed a milestone payment subject to achieving that milestone? So whatever that may be, you want to be agreeing that with the builder. Now, bear in mind that the builder probably won't want to talk about that in front of his tradesman. So don't be surprised if he wants to go outside or he wants to talk to you about that separately. And sometimes that might be, I've ended up having those kinds of meetings. We've gone for a coffee round the corner and had a coffee together and then sorted out the payment side, because obviously he doesn't need his tradesman to know the nitty gritty of the pound notes, as it were. But you're not going to necessarily be doing that every time unless you've agreed a weekly payment regime, which in most cases is rare. I tend, as I've said previously, to agree fortnightly at the most frequent. But of course, that's every other time you go to the project. After you've left the project, I would encourage you to make some notes and potentially confirm things back to the builder in writing, particularly if you've given the builder some decisions. If you've confirmed that you're going to reconfigure the bathroom, or there's some extra repair works where the floorboards were rotted or something like that. No harm in doing that whilst it's fresh in your mind. I tend to do that. I do still do quite a lot by email. The builder that I work with frequently is more than happy with email. I'll tend to do that often. Just type it up on my phone whilst I'm having a cup of tea myself, and get that over there and then whilst it's fresh in my mind, so that if the builder can't say that he wasn't instructed or he wasn't aware of something, or you came away and it was wishy-washy. And sometimes I've come away and thought about things afterwards and thought, actually, I'm not entirely sure what I decided on site was the right thing. So I might make a phone call at that point and just go back to the builder and say that actually I've changed my mind. I'd rather do this. So don't be afraid to do that. In many ways, it shows that you are on it. But the key thing is you really want to wrap up this visit in one go. You don't want it lingering. You don't want the loose ends lingering for a day or two, because you're likely to have got things. B, the builder may have gone off on a bit of a tangent before you even pull them back again. So I really want to try and get those confirmations over to builders, within an hour or two of actually leaving the project as best as I can. And that doesn't always work, but as best you can. And really, this also comes down to the relationship you've got with your builder. If you're working with the same builder all of the time, things like this get a huge amount easier. And I have to say, some of the projects I've got involved with, you could almost say that I've got a little bit lazy because I have ended up with such a good relationship with the builder. So what I'm talking to you about really is the best case scenario, but tailor it to suit the relationship you've got with your builder. If this is a new builder first project, then I would suggest that this is the kind of regime that you want to be following when you do your site visits. So remember, from just a summary perspective, remember that you are the overall manager. You've delegated the responsibility of the construction work to the building business, but remember, everyone needs management to some degree, and builders can very much lose their way because they go to the project every single day. It's this old issue of not seeing the wood for the trees, and it needs someone like you to come in and just ask some good questions, for them just to open up and also help them realize that perhaps they have dropped the ball somewhere, perhaps they have missed something out. And you're not looking to trip them up with your questioning, you're looking to help them, help them get it right. So if you are expecting the plasterer to start next week, when you visit this week, you can say, "Oh, have you got the plasterer lined up? Who's doing your plastering for you, or whatever?" And just doesn't really matter what the builder says. If the builder hasn't got the plasterer lined up, he'll go away and deal with it as soon as you've left site. And so it's about asking questions in the right kind of way. We want to be keeping an eye on milestones and targets. So we want to know, builders need some milestones, and we've got this end date of the project. So we want to keep them fresh in builders' minds. We want to keep reminding builders of when they've told us they're going they're going to finish. I'm recording this in late November. I'm working on a project at the moment, and the builder is adamant that he's going to finish by Christmas. There's a nice completion date there. Personally, I don't think he's going to make it. I think he's going to miss it. I'm not really worried if he misses it, because I need to get a valuer to come and look at it. And I think if he misses it, it'll work over Christmas anyway, and the valuer will still be able to get there in the new year. But because he told me he'd finish by Christmas, every question I'm saying is, "Are you on track for Christmas?" And even the joke, have a bit of a joke, or am I bringing the turkey to cook in the oven here? And that are we doing turkey sandwiches for everyone because you're running behind? Have a bit of a joke, but kind of keep reinforcing these milestones that are important. But be prepared to be flexible. If the builder's got behind through as a result of poor management sometimes, or a tradesman not being available, then just accept does kind of happen. And smaller projects are really hard to get back on track once they've slipped. And or maybe the builder slipped behind because there's some extra works come to light. Just be open to that and reset the milestones. Oh yeah, so I agreed that extra work with you. So we're not going to be finished by Christmas now, are we? I think that is going to run into the new year. Let's agree a new date. Let's get that out in the open, nice and early. So that's kind of my answer to the question. And it leads me really to wrap up by saying, if you believe that you need to visit the project more frequently than once a week, then I would suggest you want to try and work out what has gone wrong. And normally there's one of two reasons that something's gone wrong. The first reason is you've actually, inadvertently got the wrong builder. You've got a builder that is all over the place. Despite your best efforts to find a good builder, the one you've appointed really is not on top of it and is going to struggle whatever happens. So, and so the learning there is, got to do some more due diligence. I've got to ask better questions. I know this guy told me stuff, and I wondered at the time whether it was right. I can learn from that, because that's everything we do is learning. Or the second reason that maybe you feel that you've got to go there more frequently is because actually the builder hasn't got clarity. The schedule of works is lacking information. And as a result, there's a whole raft of questions every time you go to the property, and the builder keeps phoning you with questions and queries and problems. And the learning there, of course, is just about tightening up your schedule of works and getting more detail into that schedule of works in the first place. That might take you an extra 2 days at the front end, but think how much time that will save you in the longer term, not having to keep going to the project more than once a week, as it were. So those are the common two reasons why people do believe they need to go to the project more frequently. And I suppose the third reason is some people just like a day out, don't they? But bear in mind, every time you go to a project and you talk to the builder on site, particularly if that builder is a working builder, you disrupt his working. I did a project many years ago now. We were converting a house into an HMO. It was down on the south coast. And I met the builder, and in fact, the project hadn't started, and we were talking to the builder about coming out once a week to do some weekly inspections. And we agreed, I think it was going to be Wednesday. And the builder says to me, "Yeah, you need to get here at 12:15 on a Wednesday." I said, "Oh, that's very precise. What happens at 12:15?" He said, "I have my lunch." And he said, I stop working from 12:15 until 1 o'clock every day. And for 45 minutes, you can talk to me. He said, "No one will do any work in that 45 minutes. We always stop." He said, "But you can talk to me whilst I'm having my sandwiches about anything that's going on. Any other time you come to site, I'll be working because I only get paid when I'm working." And it was a real eye opener that, builders don't get paid when you're swanning around site asking questions, and in some cases faffing around. So make sure you're not going there too frequently. If you are going there too frequently, you are probably causing some delay somewhere along the way. It might only be 20 minutes every single time, but if you're there every day of the week, those 20 minutes compound up, and suddenly we're measuring in days of delay. And that's kind of going to be a breakdown of relationship with your builder as well, and therefore potentially not a builder that you can use again. So the answer to the question, how often should you visit site? Personally, aim for once a week, and I've been through the things that you should be looking for and asking questions about when you go there. So, I love going to sites. I love having a crack with the builders. I love catching up with what they're doing. I love seeing the progress they're doing. Use them use the time wisely. Keep it down to a minimum. A lot of projects can be visited in 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so. You don't need to be there for hours on most property investment type projects. But again, go along, enjoy it, build the relationship, and as with everything, you'll get more and more experienced the more you do it. So all of the best with your next site visits.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. Please do like, share, and leave a comment where you can. If you need any guidance or advice with anything to do with your refurbishments or conversions, then don't hesitate to reach out. You can book a free call with me by clicking on the link at the top of my website, refurbishmentmastery.com. There's other ways you can contact me in the show notes as well. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.